our favorite crowdfunded board games from 2022. Thank you for joining us here at Tantrum House Studio D. I'm Kevin Delp.
And I'm Melissa Delp. Now this video is going to cover games that were on crowdfunding this year. So not ones that delivered this year, but were actually on crowdfunding. Mm-hmm. And it's only games that we have personally played.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a lot of other great crowdfunding games, but we just didn't have a chance to play those.
But we played a lot of great games that were crowdfunded. So we're going to start with some honorable mentions, and then we'll get into the top 10 lists. So my honorable mention for this list is an expansion to Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition. This is called the Discovery, Foundations, and Crisis expansion. Now, I love Terraforming Mars. But I actually play the Ares Expedition more. I feel like I get that same feeling of Terraforming Mars in a shorter playtime and maybe a little more streamlined. So when they came out with this expansion, I was really excited about it. There's actually basically 3 modules: the Crisis, the Foundation, and Discovery. I think my favorite module is Discovery with those upgraded cards, the action cards. So.
Right. Yeah, I really enjoyed that too, to be able to do something a little different, a little bit more powerful with the actions you're selecting. Although, if you don't get the cards that allow you to upgrade, it can feel a little restricting, as other players do. All these awesome things.
All these awesome things. And then the other ones, one of the other modules brings like a 6th player, and the Crisis ones brings some like variability to cataclysmic things going on in the Terraforming Mars world. But that is my honorable mention for this list.
So my honorable mention is the Unconscious Mind from Fantasia Games. It's an honorable mention because we only played maybe a round or two. Did you?
I got to play it too. This is definitely an honorable mention because we didn't get to play a whole game of it.
Will and Sarah did the overview video for it. They got to play it, and we just got to experience a little bit of it. Boy. But I enjoyed what little I did play and see of the game.
I think if this was if we got to play a full game or multiple games, I think it would be a lot higher on the list because I love the aesthetic of the game. Mm-hmm. One of my 2 favorite artists, Vincent Dutray and Andrew Bosley, they did a wonderful job of integrating their art into the game and how that works with just the gameplay and the cards and all that. And I like the gameplay as well.
Right. It has an interesting mix of mechanisms. You have the worker placement aspect. You have your little kind of rondelle on your board with where your little marker is landing. Right. You have the kind of shops or different towns that you're moving through. So there's a lot going on, but I felt like it made sense.
Oh, yeah. And it looks like a lot going on the board. I agree. But I also think that the game just is easy to play, too, once you understand what's going on.
They kind of click and make sense of
the
what's going on.
The engine building, I think, is really what I really like in the game. So, we ready to get started with our number 10?
All right.
Let's do it. Number 10. Our number 10, we have different games, but for most of the list, we have the same game. Not the case for number 10. Mine is Tsuro Luxury, the Luxury Edition. I love introducing games to people, and Tsuro is an easy game to introduce to people. And when I heard about the Tsuro Luxury, I was definitely interested in that. I got to see a prototype of it, then we got to take a prototype home and got to play it, and it is a luxury edition.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's like one of those, you would refer to an heirloom sort of thing. The pawns are metallic and gold and silver and bronze, and the tiles have they're etched, and it just is a very luxurious game. It is a game I've already played, so I did put this in the number 10 spot because it wasn't a new game for me. But I do enjoy the experience of Tsuro. It's a fun game to play, and if you like it, definitely check that one out.
So my number 10 is La Granja Deluxe from Board and Dice. Now, I actually had never played the game before, this version.
I have played La Granja before.
So this was my first introduction to the game, and I really enjoyed the multi-use cards, trying to decide, because there's like 3 different things you can use them for, and deciding which aspect you want to use for your card. I like that in this campaign there were a lot of modules, so it brings a lot of variability into the game, and I do like exploring new things. So variability, if it's good variability, is usually a big plus for me, because I like to pull different levers and see what happens with different strategies and think in new ways. And the Granja Deluxe had a lot of that. And as a deluxe game, the components were really nice. The dual layer board, all of that. So that's why I picked La Granja Deluxe.
I also had this as my number 10, but since Melissa had...
Kevin's the one now slipping in extra games.
I had played the original, like I said, and the artwork was really, really boring, and actually almost dissuaded me from playing the game. Now that there is this deluxe version, the artwork is beautiful. It really draws you in, and I actually do like the gameplay, so I'm excited to get this one to the table when it hopefully arrives sometime in 2023. You ready for number 9?
Number 9. So our number 9 is Shake That City from AEG, which actually was just on Kickstarter. So very recent, played it recently. This is a puzzly game, and I love...
And tiling, too.
Yes, tiling and kind of a puzzly aspect. So those are 2 things that I really enjoy. Also, it has simultaneous turns.
Oh, yeah.
So it moves very quickly, and you can play the game in about 30 minutes or so, 30, 45 minutes. So it's pretty quick.
I like the in games that bring new things to the game, and this has that shaker. I think that's really what draws, like, well, what does that shaker do? You're in the pyramid from camel up, it deposited a die, and that was a cool thing. Well, it sort of acts the same way, where you're shaking these colored cubes and you're pressing it, and it brings a grid, which is really cool, because every time it has a different combination of colors, and that combination or the placement of those colors in the grid actually matter to the gameplay.
Right, yeah. The tiles you place have to be in the same orientation as the ones in the grid, so you're not only thinking which color tile do I want, but where do I want to place them? Oh, I really want some shops, but I don't like the way that they're together, or especially the houses, because you actually want them not to be next to each other, and sometimes there's like, there's 3 in a line there. That's not going to get me any extra points.
Shake That City from AEG. Number 8. Draft and Write Records from Inside Up Games is our number 8. We're big fans of roll and write games, and this is similar. It's not rolling, it's sort of flipping. And
it's drafting.
It's drafting.
Draft and
thank
write.
you, Melissa. Draft and write records. This one's unique in this sort of genre in that you have colored pencils that come in the box that you can actually use to place the different colors on in your board. I do also like the chaining of the rewards that you're getting as you place one thing, and all of a sudden you get to place a color somewhere else, and all of a sudden you get to do that and cross off over here. I like that in games where you're like, if I just do this one thing, it sort of chains all these different things going on the board. That is a big thumbs up for me.
Yeah, I definitely had that as one of the pluses of the game in my mind, those combos or chains. Also, I like that there are goals in the games. You have some personal goals, you have some group goals, and that always helps me kind of focus on something. Even if I'm too slow to actually get the goal, at least it gave me some direction and guidelines, so I'm not just like, what do I do on my turn? Because I have so many choices.
And I like that there's different things that you're doing on your player board. It's not just, I'm not just trying to find the best band. There's the bus route. There's this calendar that you're trying to do. So there's a lot of different things going on the board, which I think I enjoyed that part.
Yeah, definitely. You often have a lot of good choices.
Yeah.
So it's trying to decide what's the best choice, or how can I hedge my bets so I don't get negative points because I can't place a band member, or, those sort of things. So lots of interesting decisions to make.
Draft and Write Records from Inside Up Games.
Number 7. So our number 7 is Rolling Heights from AEG.
You got it right back there.
Oh, okay, Kevin's going to go grab it.
Here's the prototype!
So, yes, we have a prototype copy. This is designed by John DeClaire, and the artwork's by Kwanchai Moria, and I've really enjoyed a lot of John DeClaire's games. He's known for Mystic Vale and all the card crafting games.
Dead Reckoning,
lots of
Ready,
great
Set,
games.
Bet.
Oh, Ready, Set, Bet. That's a good one from this year.
That wasn't a prototype, though. Sorry.
One of my favorite things about Rolling Heights is it has a unique aspect of rolling your meeples. You have different colored meeples and you roll them, and depending on if they're standing up or if they're lying on their sides or if they're completely flat, you'll get a different power for your action. And each color gives you a different type of action. So there's a lot of variability or different things that can happen on your turn. There's also tile placement, which I love. And you're buying buildings, placing them out on the board. The different buildings will score in different ways. I love lots of different ways to score. So there's a good amount of stuff going on in the game, but it makes sense. And when you can actually do a play that lets you build something and then put the cubes on and then get a lot of stuff, it's very satisfying.
I enjoy all those things, and even like when you're rolling the meeples, deciding what meeples to roll, because near the middle to the end of the game, you might have a lot of meeples, but you can only roll a certain number. So there's choices in the game, which I really enjoy. The other main thing I do like in the game is the building part of the game, where you actually are doing the little building blocks and placing them on those building tiles. And by the end of the game, it just looks amazing. So, visually pleasing.
Because they're building up maybe like 4 blocks or 6 blocks.
And you're getting
high.
points from all those, but like the actual visually pleasingness of it is just really cool. So, that is Rolling Heights from AEG.
Number 6. So our number 6 is Earth from Inside Up Games. This is a nature-themed tableau building game.
Earth-themed?
Yes. Where you are building a tableau of cards. But it has the simultaneous play where the active player chooses an action and gets the greater benefit of that action. And then everyone else can perform it, but at a lesser power of that action. So it keeps people engaged every turn. There's a lot of different ways to score. There's adjacency. The different cards have...
Oh, yeah, in your tableau.
Yeah, the ones in your tableau have scoring options. They have powers that you can activate. There are goals that are public goals. So lots of different things that you're thinking about as you're choosing which cards to play, where to put them in your tableau, and what actions to activate. So I like the crunchy, puzzly choices in the game.
Me too, and I actually do like the art as well. Actually, there's not illustrated like a lot of games, like animal-themed games. There's actually photos that they hired a guy, or actually had someone had all these photos, and it's just beautiful, the photography in the game. It just really draws you in, and it just adds to the thematicness, the theme of the game Earth. And there's also there are tokens in the game, and some of them are little trees that you're building and putting little like canopies on top of it. Cabs. And I think that's fun too. I don't remember what they decided on at the end. But we had a prototype, so I don't know what the final decision was, but it was fun in the prototype.
Yeah, I think they unlocked a version where they interlock.
Oh, wow.
So they actually stack on top of each other, and it's hard to knock them down.
That is Earth from Inside Up Games. Number 5. Our number 5 is an expansion to Maglev Metro. I think I might be a little bit bigger fan of Maglev Metro.
Yeah, if we were completely separate lists, this might be a few takes down on it. But I do really like the Mechs expansion.
Yes, so Maglev Metro from Bezier Games, they had a Kickstarter for expansions to Maglev Metro. It had Mechs and Monorails, Mars and Moon bases, and London and Paris. We got to play quite a few of them, and actually we have some of the prototypes.
Oh, lovely bags of prototypes.
But I do like that each one of them brings just a unique flavor, not only the theme, but also the gameplay. It's just really reworking what you're doing in Maglev Metro, where you're trying to... It's sort of a pick up and deliver type game, route building game. I really enjoy it as your sort of even engine building. A little bit of all these things that I really enjoy in games. But I think I do agree with you. mechs. The mechs one might still be my favorite because of the power-up.
Right. So it basically lets every player be a little overpowered, and you can kind of choose where to put your mechs to kind of send your thing into overdrive and really get bonuses. So that speeds up the game and gives you a lot of choices of how you want to divert your strategy. So I really enjoyed that with the mechs.
Some of the other ones are sometimes are a little bit more restrictive, like Paris. It's sort of like blocked off things. So, and it was also based off of a historical like strike in Paris. So I thought that was interesting that there were some historical things going on. There's some sci-fi futuristic things going on with the mechs and Mars and moon bases in London and all these different things. If you haven't checked out the Maglev Metro, there's a lot of different choices. So check it out. If you've already owned Maglev Metro, the expansions bring a whole new things to the gameplay. That's Maglev Metro expansions from Bezier Games.
Number 4. So our number 4 is another expansion from Bezier Games. And this one is for the Castles of Mad King Ludwig. They had a Kickstarter for the Renovations expansion, and we have a prototype here. Castles of Mad King Ludwig is one of my all-time favorite games.
It is your favorite.
It is my favorite game. So I'm always excited when more content comes out for it. Renovations, I like this expansion a lot more than the Moats and Swans, which was the very first expansion they did. This expansion really changes your strategies and how the game plays, because you can build over tiles that you've already placed in your castle, and they're going to have 2 types of room on them. So you're getting double benefits and bonuses, and it just really made me have to think differently about how I'm playing the game and what I'm purchasing and how I'm building my castle. And I just love it. I do. It's one of my favorites. I probably would have put it higher.
I agree. It is an expansion, though.
It is.
So, right. I thought... Anyway, I do agree. It is a very fun game. The expansion Renovations, the one thing that I would maybe add to what you're saying is I like everything that you talked about on that with the different room types and the double room types, but even the thought that went into this expansion where the renovations are just a slightly bit smaller, so that when you renovate on top of another tile, of course it's the same shape, you can still see the wall and where the doors are. That just shows me that Bezier Games was really thinking about the gameplay and making sure it didn't detract from the game itself. So highly recommend this as any of the expansions to
Castles
of Mad King Ludwig. This is probably one of my favorites. Number 3. Number 3 for us is Tesseract from Smirk and Dagger, Smirk and Laughter Games. This is a co-op game. This is our only co-op game on the list. This game is a very puzzly game that has these cubes in a tesseract, in a cube, dice on a cube.
Yes.
64 of them, so a lot of them.
On a spinning platform.
A little spinning platform. They have different colors. It sort of looks alienish, but they really are only pips on all the different sides.
Oh, the design equal like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to get those cubes and get one of each. I think there's like 5 or 6 different colors, and you're trying to get 1 through 6 of all the different colors to basically make sure the Tesseract doesn't take over mankind.
It does bad things.
Yeah, you don't want that to happen.
As the game goes on.
I like the gameplay as you're working together, you're like, okay, I need to get, basically in order to claim, I forget the exact term.
Contain.
Contain, thank you. To contain, you have to get like a set or a run of certain colors or numbers. And you're like, oh, I need a purple 5. And Melissa could do something on her turn to help me get to that purple 5. So you are working together to make sure you are containing the cubes, making sure they're not overrunning and things like that. So I really enjoy that working together. You're taking a few actions on your turn, like adjusting the die, you're trying to contain the dice, you're have special powers, which reminds me a little bit of Pandemic in that, where like you can do really interesting things on my turn that someone else really couldn't do to help the team out. So those are some of the things I really enjoy about Tesseract.
Yeah, the special powers for the players I really enjoy. There's also cards that you can get throughout the game that give you special one-time use powers. So combining those is also...
And they have different levels.
Right. So they get more powerful if you can get to the higher levels of cards. So using those at the right time can be very important for your game. There are different difficulty levels built into the game. Yes. So we did play this live. And
at a higher difficulty level.
Yes. You'll have to watch to see what happened and whether or not we defeated the Tesseract. But it is very puzzly and very interesting to try to manipulate your actions and the dice to get what you need to contain them before it overruns and lots of bad things happen that cause you to lose the game.
That's Tesseract from Smirk and Dagger, Smirk and Laughter.
Number 2. All right, so for the number 2 game, Kevin and I have different games this time. Mine is Fit to Print from Flat Out Games. It's designed by Peter McPherson. He did Tiny Towns. The artist is Ian O'Toole. It has these really adorable anthropomorphic animals who work in a newspaper. This is a real-time game.
I'm surprised.
I know. Usually I don't like real-time games, but it fits so well with the theme of a newspaper, and it has tiling, which I love.
Not just tiling, like polyomino tiles.
Right. So they're different shapes and sizes. Now, I was a journalism major in college. I was copy editor of our school paper. So I think the theme just really resonates with me, and the real-time aspect makes sense with, I need to get all this stuff in the paper and it needs to be out by this time, and I'm drinking lots of coffee and staying up late. But anyway, I really enjoy the scoring nature of the game where you're trying to get certain tiles next to each other. You only have a few minutes, and that's divided between gaining tiles. And then once you've gained everything you think you need, then you can start placing them on your paper, and you may have taken too many or not enough, or you don't have the right combination. So it is a little frantic, but it's quick. And I think if it were a really long game, that might drag, but it's a short game, and those little bursts of adrenaline I really enjoy. There are other ways to play it if you don't want that real-time nature. There's a turn-based variant. There's also a family-friendly variant that takes some of the complexity out. So there's a lot of options for playing the game if you don't want the more frenzied aspect of the real-time. But lots of ways to score. Very puzzly, thinky. I really, really enjoyed this one.
My number 2 is Last Light from Gray Fox Games and designed by Roy Kennedy. This, I didn't really know if I would enjoy it or not. I'm not really big into 4X style games, but this is a sort of sci-fi theme where you are in charge of an asymmetrical faction that's sort of spreading out the universe, and you are exploring, and you are fighting, and you are doing all the things in a 4X style game. Now, there's a couple things I do that really drew me in and why it's so high on my list. One is I like the gameplay. It has a simultaneous thing going on, so it makes the game fast. So it's a 4X game that is streamlined. It's not going to take you 3, 4, 5 hours to play. You can literally play it maybe an hour and a half, which is really unheard of for these types of games. The mechanisms in the game, one of them, there's like sort of 3 concentric circles, and they're moving during the game, which means that you are sort of next to things.
Your ships are
your ships are in different spots during the game. I actually really enjoy that. So you're not like, I have to get to the other side of the universe if you really want to, because you can sort of plan this out as these things are moving. The other really cool part in the game, I'm really all about aesthetics and artwork and things like that, are the planets. They're 3D. They look like little marbles.
Little lollipops.
Lollipops. They're not even marbles. They're like big. And they stand on these acrylic stands, and it just really makes the board, the table presence, really cool. But yeah, Last Light, I played it multiple times now, and I give it a big thumbs up. That's why it's my number 2 from Gray Fox Games.
Yeah, I did enjoy certain aspects of the game. Ultimately, it was a little more confrontational than I like in my games. Give me less player interaction, and I'm good.
Although in this game, the way to win is to get lights, so you could there's definitely confrontation, but there are ways to win by just trying to get like 20 light, hence the name of the game, Last Light. Number 1. So our number 1 is Skyrise from Roxley. This is a game set in like a city in the clouds, and everyone has their buildings, and they all have different numbers on them. So I have a set of numbers, and Melissa has a set of numbers, and everyone has their own set of numbers, and they're all different. And what you're trying to do is you're bidding by placing those buildings out on the board, trying to get the right spot. So there's some area control going on as you're placing your buildings out, trying to get in the right spots. But I could place a building out, but then Melissa could then outbid.
You are making a line, so they have to be adjacent to each other.
So as you're doing that, you're like, oh, I really wanted to go this direction, but all of a sudden this line is going the other direction, and maybe you're just gonna say, oh, I don't want that area. So then someone else wins the bid, and you get your buildings back. So then you're then being able to bid again in a later round. So yeah, this is very, very, very cool. The game mechanics are just really interesting for me.
Yeah, normally I shy away from bidding or auction games and area control, but this one really worked for me because of that open information with the bidding. Also, it's not exclusively about area control. No. You can get points in lots of different ways. There are goals, there are tokens you're collecting, there's personal goals, group goals. So while the area control is,
I think it's a big part,
a big aspect, it's not the only aspect. And there is player interaction, but it doesn't feel like super confrontational.
Yeah, it's not like
I'm not like destroying your buildings.
Not destroying buildings, and it's not like, oh, I don't get, like, I bid those buildings, I never get them back.
Right.
Like if I don't win, I can just maybe try and go somewhere else, which I like.
Yeah, you can kind of be strategic and sneaky and be like, I don't really want this space, but I don't want Kevin to get it so cheaply, so maybe I'll bid it up and hope that someone else bids so I don't get stuck with it. But if other people are like, oh, I don't think Melissa wants that, they may be like, oh.
Yeah, and there's different, we didn't talk about this, the buildings themselves are different levels, so which really matters in scoring, which I really find interesting too. Do I go and just take my highest building and get the spot I want, or do I try and win with a lower size building? So all that. Also, the buildings themselves are they're crafted uniquely. So my blue buildings or red buildings or whatever are different than Melissa's different colored buildings, even the shapes of them.
Right.
So that I find really
great too. Like several of the games we've mentioned already in this video, at the end it looks really cool as there are all these buildings out on the board, and they're different colors and different sizes and shapes, designs. So it's very aesthetically pleasing.
So that is Skyrise from Roxley. Well, I hope you enjoyed our top 10 list with a couple honorable mentions at the beginning. Were there any games that you backed or that you found interesting? Please let us know those in the comments below. Or maybe there's a game that we left off the list and you're like, why didn't you have that game on your list? Probably because we didn't play it.
Probably.
But yeah, let us know if there were other games that you backed or were on crowdfunding that you were really passionate about. We'd love to hear about those in the comments below.
Yeah, and for published games, we'll be having some videos coming out shortly for the top games of the year for each of us. I think we're doing a guys video and a girls video. So you'll get to hear a lot of the games that we really enjoyed that were published this year.
Yeah, check those coming out next week.